Bear crew and everybody up in arms?
Well, nobody really knows, but Brett said the tire looked like it just fell off the car. I don't know if something broke on his car or what, but we're okay, I think.
Brett say anything about the car, about the front end? Did he knock anything loose?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, that's a word from the Hearn camp.
Vinny Salerno, the owner of Brett Hearn's 358 Modified, taking a minute to talk to us as they went into turn number 4, Rick. Looks like there was some contact made between Hearn and Eckerd.
Well, it is a little rough here. It's dusty, and everybody's on the gas hard. You're coming to the start, and they just did seem to get together a little. The comment from Salerno seemed to indicate perhaps a wheel was loose on Eckerd's car. Now, Kenny Tremont has brought the 115 to pit road for a splash of fuel.
Nice little strategy by the 1999 winner. He was a past winner's provisional. He failed to qualify for the Eckerd 200 and was added to the field.
Now, the laps have been counting as we've been under caution since Eckerd's trip into the concrete off turn 4. Ready to go single file this time. Fuller, Pat Ward, right behind him, Jimmy Phelps in the 98, and we're racing again at Syracuse. One car venturing out way high out of turn 4. That's Richie Tobias. He wants 6th here going into 1.
No surprise to see Tobias go to the top side. He likes to run the top shelf here at Syracuse. A few years ago, back in the late 90s, during a non-qualifiers race, he passed a bunch of cars up there and then did it again, starting 41st in that Eckerd 200.
Well, on a flat mile, there's just a lot of rubber down here. To say it's dry slick doesn't begin to describe this place. There's no cushion to hook up to. You're really taking a gamble. Billy Decker 8th in that 91 car.
Remember what we saw in the 358 Modified race with Chad Brockman and Danny Johnson? They made the top side work, and you know Tobias was watching that race very intently to see if the top side would come around.
Riding with Decker as he hits the backstretch. Decker, a master of this place, 4 Eckerd 200 victories in his career, dating back to 1998. There he is in that Gypsum Express car number 91. Trying to take care of his tires. A master at playing the fuel mileage game as well. Tim Fuller in clean air. He has led all the way so far.
Having a very good run. Fuller, 1 win in the Eckerd 200 back in 2004. He only led 1 lap. That was the last half mile of the race when Kenny Tremont ran out of gas.
Second belongs to Decker's teammate Pat Ward in the Gypsum Express 42. He had a good run earlier this week in that 358 Modified show as well. And Jimmy Phelps kind of an unheralded contender in that 98 car as we ride with Fuller.
Jimmy Phelps has really helped that H&H Motorsports team get to this level. He won one of the triple 20 qualifying events here earlier this week, put him in the top starting positions. As a matter of fact, started 3rd.
7 laps go on the board of the 200. Here at the New York State Fairgrounds, the capstone to the 35th renewal of Super Dirt Week. We are glad to have you with us, showing you the top 6. Jack and Ronnie Johnson back there in contention. Jack Johnson in his 60s now in that 12 car. And there's Alan Johnson in the 14, no relation. Looks as though he'll be the Mr. Dirt champion of the big blocks this season. But the driver on the move, hiking that inside front wheel out of turn 4 is Richie Tobias. He's up to 4th, Mark Kenyon.
I'm down here with Rich Francis. Rich, you know, I know Richie a long time, raced with him. He's put on a furious pace. Can he withstand this pace?
Well, it's really Richie's out there just pacing it, nursing it a little bit right now. He's not showing his cards. The Troyer's handling great this week. The rain we had earlier in this week has put a lot of grip into this track, something we're not used to here at Syracuse. So Rich is just out there. He feels comfortable. He's putting on a real easy pace. We're going to conserve the tires and maybe hold the fuel off. But we're looking for a real strong finish for the Senko oil cars today with a lot of help from Billy Colton from Troyer. We really appreciate it. But Richie's just out there cruising around like a USAC Silver Crown car right now.
If he's nursing it, Rick, I feel sorry for the other 45 competitors in this field because he just drove around Jack Johnson like the jumper was tied to a tree.
Well, the way to pass here at Syracuse is on the outside, and Richie Tobias picking up that inside front wheel as though he was driving a midget on a quarter-mile asphalt racetrack. He is just hustling that car, headed toward the front. Let's move back a little bit, check in with Brett Hearn there in the Wentworth 20 car. Hearn settling into the top 15. There's the 44 car trying to chase him down. Hearn seems to be okay.
He seems to be okay. The guy right behind him is smoking that right rear sneaker. That's Steve Payne in the number 7X as they do battle.
Down into turn number 1, the Hurricane, Steve Payne. He's been a very strong competitor in dirt modified racing for a long time. You know Hearn's story out of New Jersey. They called him the corporate jet for many years. He's the guy who's really made this a major league form of motorsport in the Northeast over the last 20, 25 years.
He's won this event 5 times, but he hasn't won since 1995. You see his crew looking on. Doesn't look like there's any damage after that incident with the David Eckerd number 1 machine at the start.
Well, Hearn's luck at Syracuse the last many years, both on the small block side and on the big block side, has been nothing short of horrendous, and he would love nothing more than to see the checkered flag in that car today. Kind of let the finish take care of itself as we show you the top 6 with 16 laps on the board. And we'll move back. Trombley is in 7th. Ronnie Johnson, Billy Decker making up the top 9. One car dive into pit road. Leader all the way so far has been Tim Fuller in that 19. Ward is 2nd now.
Pat Ward has been sensational this week in that number 42P machine. Put that car on the outside of the front row. Of course, teammates to Billy Decker, so there's a lot of knowledge to be shared within that team.
On board with Fuller, looking back at Ward's car. Jimmy Phelps comfortably in 3rd in the 98. Phelps' career really took a turn for the better this season when he hooked up with a veteran crew chief.
Yes, he did. Randy Kosacki was brought in for the H&H Motorsports team. That team owned by Al Hankey and John Howland, and they have really put together a package with Billy Colton from Troyer. That is the Troyer house car that you see in position number 3.
Richie Tobias, meantime, in the USA 1 out of Pennsylvania, on the move. He is 4th, and he's reeling in the leaders on the backstretch.
Boy, they know he's coming, too. They can use spotters in this race, and you know those spotters are telling the top 3 Tobias is charging, and he's using the top to get there.
Take you back now and check in with Danny Johnson in that 27J. Whipped the field in the 358 small block portion of Super Dirt Week earlier. 10th right now, and Johnson comfortable out there, I'd say.
The doctor using the Hans device. You notice the extra padding that he has for the headrest and everything. You're turning some pretty good speeds here on the mile, and Danny Johnson giving himself some extra protection.
He's trying to reel in Billy Decker there in the 91, the red car directly in front. We talked about Decker. He's got one of our onboard cameras as well. Master of fuel strategy here, 4 times a winner of this race.
And you can see why he's a master of fuel strategy. Did you hear when he got off the throttle, just let it roll smoothly right in the corner? Car didn't even wiggle that much, and then right back on the gas when he gets to the straightaway.
Now, conventional wisdom here is that you want to keep the car as straight as possible. Now, Richie Tobias has just thrown that right out the window as Decker closes in on Ronnie Johnson in the 2 car.
Similar to racing on asphalt, because this track does get that hard and that slippery, so you have to be gentle on the throttle, otherwise you're going to spin your tires.
Side by side down into the corner. There's Ronnie Johnson, Danny Johnson, that back there, no relation. On board with Decker, the doctor right behind him. They're 9th and 10th.
These drivers are just riding around right now, Rick, getting a feel of their race cars. They don't want to push it too hard. They want to save it for the end of this race. Feel one another out. You can learn a lot about the guys you're racing against. But you're not only racing against each other, you're racing against the track.
Meantime, battle for 2nd starting to take shape down into 3. Ward in that red 42, Phelps in that blue and white 98 car doing battle. And I think Phelps may be deciding for himself, hey, I don't want Fuller to get too far out of sight here.
This is the best.
Oh, trouble, the 32C, the Sweeteners Plus car. Vic Coffey with a blown motor.
A tough break for Vic Coffey out of Leicester, New York, the 2002 winner in the Sweeteners Plus 32C.
Now, he will not see the checkered flag here today. That motor is gone, and Coffey will have to take that car to pit road and use the backstretch entrance up on the cinder track and get that car out of harm's way. But we will stay green here this afternoon at Syracuse.
Tough break for Coffey. Started 38th on the grid.
No change up in front. The leader remains Fuller in the 19. Ward is 2nd. Phelps putting a lot of pressure on him, though, in that 98 car. And he turns inside. He wants 2nd spot on the backstretch.
Got a good shot off at corner number 2. Does he have enough to make the pass? Yes, he does. A good move by Jimmy Phelps. Set Pat Ward up, the opening on the bottom, and he took advantage of it.
Ward was clearly holding Phelps up as Phelps moves quickly past the 42. And now we'll see if Tobias will try to go by the 42 as well. Richie Tobias clearly with the fastest car in the place for the first 20-plus miles, but he's stuck back there in 4th. Fuller's led all the way so far at Syracuse. Welcome back. We're in Syracuse, New York, the place they call the Moody Mile at the New York State Fairgrounds with Shane Andrews. I'm Rick Benjamin, Mark Kenyon, and Andy Fusco on pit road for us. Tim Fuller in that 19 has led all the way so far. Nowhere close to 50 miles on the board, Shane, but these teams, I'm sure, are already starting to think about pit strategy, and there are no rules, basically.
That's right. You can pit and whatever you want, anytime you want. You don't have to make a mandatory pit stop. It is wide open. And you're right. They are starting to think about pit strategy, as there are 2 races in one within this Eckerd 200. Some guys will run for the halfway bonus of $5,000, while others are going to try and set themselves up for the big win.
Richie Tobias riding nicely in 4th. Now he was very quick early. It seems as though he's settled in fourth. He may have a lot in reserve. He's been the only driver we've been able to see who's been able to consistently use a higher line and pass cars on the outside, but he's comfortable right now in that USA 1.
In this portion, Tim Fuller's setting the pace of the race. If somebody gets close to him, we'll see if he can pick up the pace himself. But right now, everybody just riding it out, feeling their cars, waiting to see what the car in front of them is going to do if we see a caution.
Very impressive early run for Jimmy Phelps in that 98, the H&H car. Take you back a little further in the field. There's Pat Ward on the 42P. Started on the outside pole. He's settled in third now in front of Tobias.
And those top 4 cars have really opened up an advantage over the rest of the field. So these drivers right now working in their own little pack, pulling away from everybody else.
As is typical here at Syracuse on a sunny, hot afternoon, the dust starts to become a factor here. Even though they take good care of this racetrack, it is dry. So one car in trouble. That's Jessica Zemkin in the 1 car. Looks as though that motor has blown up big time. Huge fire in turn 4. Second caution of the day.
Young lady out of Spraker's, New York, the first woman to start an Eckerd 200 in its 35th year.
And Shane, she's been spending most of her time in sprint cars. She's done very well there.
She started out racing a Sportsman on the dirt tracks here in central New York, jumped into the 360s, has a couple of wins. She's even dabbled in the 410s with the World of Outlaw sprint cars.
And Jessica Zemkin safely out of that Native Poker car number 1. Safety crew right there. Here it is, car on fire from the engine compartment.
Tony Laughing from Native Poker put this team together here for Super Dirt Week specifically for Jessica Zemkin to get some experience on the mile.
So the safety crew here at the fairgrounds has put the fire out. Jessica's shaken, but walking back to pit road under her own power. So we're under caution. Pit road is open now. Second caution of the day. And who will we see on pit road, I wonder?
Well, it doesn't look like Tim Fuller's going to get dive down, or Jimmy Phelps, or Pat Ward, or Tobias. Not too many cars in the top 5.
So the leaders will stay on the racetrack, but here comes the doctor. Danny Johnson says, hey, I'll take the opportunity maybe for a splash of fuel.
This really isn't a bad strategy to pull into the pits, get a splash of fuel, maybe change a tire, but it also leaves pit road open so you have more room to work.
Now the Wentworth team for Brett Hearn, they're going to go to work as well. Right rear tire going on the Troyer 27J of Johnson along with fuel.
Dave Thompson, the owner of that Danny Johnson team, Mike Burdick, he is the crew chief making the shots here today, and they are going to put a new sneaker on. Let's see if this will get them the distance, or will they come back for another one later on?
Have to help Danny get the 27J fired up, but he rolls down pit road. Hearn's team, meantime, they change your right rear on the Wentworth 20 car. Several other cars taking the opportunity to come to pit road as well.
Looked like they were taking a little extra time on the Hearn car as Matt Shepard pulls away, just making sure there wasn't any damage to the car after that start with David Hebert.
Well, you won't lose a lap, certainly, under these circumstances on a 1-mile racetrack, so you've got time to take a look at the car, change things if you need to. Andy Fusco.
Jessica Zemkin, the first girl to ever run in this race. I'm sure a ride back in the ambulance is not what you had in mind.
No, not at all. It was very short-lived. We had some engine problems for this week. It was kind of a last-minute throw-together deal, but I took it up, and glad I did. It was a lot of fun. Got some laps around this place, and we made the show, and it's a pretty big accomplishment, and got to go out there and run with the guys for a little while, and the motor just didn't last too long on me, that's all.
And you're injured a little bit. What's the matter?
Just now?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. There's oil obviously running out all over the place, so there's probably a hole in the pan. Actually, my leg was on fire there for a minute. It scared me a little bit, but just guess it wasn't built to hold up to the mile.
There's a tough customer. Are you injured? Nah, my leg was just on fire.
Well, Jessica Zemkin's first trip to Syracuse in a big block car, short-lived today, but she's got a good spirit about how things went. We'll be back at the New York State Fairgrounds. Under caution, getting set for a restart here at the New York State Fairgrounds in the Eckerd 200. There's Danny Johnson, Brett Hearn, Matt Shepard. They'll line up 30th, 31st, and 32nd when we go green here. Mark Kenyon, how does tire wear look on pit road?
Early on already, Danny Johnson's right rear tire came off the car. It looked very good. They're already talking about leaving the tires on the car and a gas and go. So the strategy starts from lap 1, and I'll tell you what, keep an eye on Danny. He's on a roll, just won a couple of big races, and he's pumped up. I talked to him earlier. He said, let it happen.
Obviously, Danny Johnson has a very good handling race car where there's no tire wear. Billy Decker looks like the left rear quarter panel's crunched in.
Yeah, we're going to take another look at what happened. This is Chad Brackman here as they were getting ready to restart.
Ouch. Comes up, he just gives him a shot. Wow.
Brackman perhaps expected Billy Decker to be on the gas a little more at that point. Now we're ready for another restart.